Leaders in tech are burning out at an absurd rate. Ctrl+Alt+Delete with Lisa Duerre is a no BS conversation with one of the top female executives who spent over 25 years in Silicon Valley. If you're suffering from the always-on, never good enough, will replace you today machine called the tech space, this show's for you. Here's Lisa.
Hey, everybody. Lisa Duerre, Ctrl+Alt+Delete. I am so excited to tell you who we've got today. I mean, I don't even know how to, when you think about the path that you're on and the people that you run into, whether they're like reason, season, or lifetime people, right? You meet people for a reason. Sometimes they stick around for a season, and then sometimes they're lifetime. Our guest today, I've known since college, and we were just reminiscing before we got started about how our paths have crossed in so many different areas. And I reached out to her because I watched her TED Talk, and I was like, you've got to come on the show, because what she is a self-proclaimed recovered workaholic. Okay. Now, if anyone in tech isn't feeling workaholicness these days, I don't know who is. I'm Renee Dineen. I'm so glad you're here today. And I'm so honored to have known you for decades now and to bring your story to life today. Thank you for being on the show.
I'm so excited that we finally made this happen. And I'm just I so admire what you're doing in your work in the world and where you've traveled, and happy to just be another stop on our collective journey.
Right. Yeah, me too. Me too. So you, everyone listening in, I want you to know Renee isn't someone who's, hasn't been there and done that. Like we've been in tech together. We both worked in human resources. We've both left human resources and we went and worked in the other lines of business. We both are mothers. We both traveled, and listen, we both have our wake up stories. So what I love about this so much is Renee has taken her wake up call and she is on fire, and she's going to drop some nuggets for you today that you don't want to miss. So whether you're perfectly content at work and everything's glory days for you right now, or you don't even want to get out of bed as you're listening to the podcast, I want you to know this is for you, because the nuggets she's going to share are not just about how to bring your best self into your career, but it's really about how to have the life that your soul really wants you to have, because there are messages all along the journey. So let me give you the formal intro on Renee so you know what I'm talking about, and we're going to jump right in. But Renee is, get ready, people. Renee is an international thought leader playing at the intersection of business, psychology, and well-being. And we all need this right now, okay? She's been transforming organizations, teams, and careers of talented and ambitious professionals, entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers for over 20 years and in over 40 countries. So there's no excuse if you're listening in outside of California, people. She's here for you. She's a recovering workaholic and an action junkie that left her 7-figure-year executive role in biotech to give herself a genuine shot at doing work in the world that mattered most to her heart, and in doing that work without sacrificing the rest of her life. In 2020, Renee took her personal story to the TEDx stage, which if you haven't seen it, you want to go watch it, where she demystifies our culture's obsession with busyness and doing. Her talk, called Authentic Inaction, Undoing the Doing in a Do Crazy World, has reached almost 600,000 views. And Renee's on a mission to revolutionize the way we work, play, and relate to one another and our purpose. How does it feel when I say all that?
I almost feel like I'm just one of your listeners. I'm like, oh, who's this woman? She sounds so familiar, but
oh my gosh.
I know. I mean, yeah, the doing addiction is real. So there's also a lot of gifts as I hear about my life and areas I've been able to step in and serve, and where I've derived meaning. My doing addiction has served me in many ways, and then it stopped. It started taking more than it was giving. So
well, even in watching your TED Talk and having known you on the periphery through our entire journeys, what courage it takes to put that out in the world and to say it, especially the type of salary you're bringing in, the work that you're doing, because we know it's needed in the world, and to say, you know what, I'm going to do it differently, and I'm going to do it authentically. When you tell stories in the TED Talk, even about not speaking up when it's just you're conditioned to speak up. Do you believe it's possible to be in tech and not burn out, and really be to be in inaction authentically? I love
the reframe of that, being in action authentically, because that's the goal. It's not to do nothing.
Right. Yeah. It's not to be a sloth on the couch, right?
That's right. I'm not giving anyone a good excuse to procrastinate, unfortunately or fortunately. But authentic inaction is that practice of kind of slowing down, being with and letting go of our inherent cultural systemic bias to do something, no matter what. And so is it possible to be in tech and not burn out? I think it's a personal journey to say yes to that I do think it is possible. I don't think that most organizations are going to hand that to us on a silver platter. And so we sort of teach people how to treat us. And we, of course, as adults, set our own boundaries around work. And my boundaries are going to be different than yours or someone else's. But it's a journey worth pursuing because I do think it's possible. But is it easy? No. Is it worthy? Absolutely. Yeah.
I just want to say, preach it. I'm right there with you. I mean, side note for anyone listening in, we were supposed to record this podcast a little while ago. And I had a personal thing go on where my daughter forgot her homework and it was her first day back in class. And I reached out to Renee. I'm like, I'm so sorry. This is what's going on in my personal life. I'm being transparent and can we reschedule? And your response, Renee, was exactly what I wish for anybody in a work environment. So as two independent, business owners, you showed me the flexibility, the grace, and you also connected with me. Oh yeah, I remember that too. And you got this, mama. You were just so wonderful. And I think about burnout at work. When you work inside a corporation, how often would a mom reach out to the boss or a client and be like, I forgot the homework and it's a 40-minute round trip. I got to move our meeting. Right. And so I hope that for everybody, that there's a time that you can actually stand in what matters most to you and that you're in an environment where it's appreciated instead of just on the phone, trying to pull over, telling the kid, don't lose your homework, blah, 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 trying to do it all. Like I made a choice in that moment and you actually held space for that. And this is why my question showed up today about in tech, because, I did that sometimes when I was in tech, when I was in corporate, but boy, did I hide it a lot, right? The inauthenticity of, I was just the worker. I was not a mom too. That was a really big struggle. And I mean, I know you have a book out now about the art. Make sure I get it right. You give it to me. What's the title?
Yeah, it's an anthology. It's called The Art and Truth of Transformation for Women. And it's a set of stories where women like you and me made a different choice in their life, took a hard left rather than a straight, wherever they were headed before, made a choice to shift the day-to-day flow of their lives and to lean into greater contact with their heart, with their soul, with their belly center, and trust that the universe had their back. So it was really a fun project to be a part of. I just want to comment, you have me thinking, by the way, just to be totally authentic, I was not, when I was working in tech and high tech, a leader that maybe offered that grace and flexibility with such ease and naturalness. I wanted to.
Yeah.
I was in my own worry about what that would look like to be, too tolerant, too easy, whatever.
Totally.
Frankly speaking, what I modeled to the world for many years, what I was complicit in being was, a leader who portrayed success as constantly overdoing. And at this moment, I refuse to live one more day as a person that, or mirror back that as success to anyone else. And so was I complicit? I was complicit. I mean, the money was great. The accolades were awesome, right? The trips were beautiful. It was nice to be noticed. It was nice to be acknowledged. And, I just, even as a parent for many years, I just refused to live that way anymore. Yeah. And I refused to create unnecessary pressure or push my own hopes or expectations or needs onto other people I work with. And so, so thank you. I mean, that was such a small thing. I can't even believe you noticed it, but what that just offered me as a gift back is that, that felt so natural. And it was like, of course. Yeah. Are you kidding, Mama? Right? You go get that girl her homework. You make sure she has a great day. Right. So thank you for helping me remember that.
Oh, you're very welcome. And it was actually a really big gift to me too, to actually stand in it instead of, in so many times you just want to make up a really good excuse. Like that didn't feel like a good excuse. The old me would have been like, but at the same time, like one thing I've noticed for people is the blinds are blurred now. You are a parent and you're working, and these things are happening. And I just invite everyone to consider, if someone forgets the homework or something comes up, can you extend that grace that I received, right? And that understanding, to give everybody that little bit of wiggle room to be human and to be imperfect, right? And so I love this so much because
Amen.
when you talk about complicit, I'm just going to go there. One of the things that really stands out for me when I think about corporate, whether it's tech, I don't care, banking, it doesn't matter. The rewards for doing and achieving, right? There aren't a lot of rewards for being. It's all about the next tape out, the next product, the next sale, the next whatever. And I characterize it as the always on, never good enough, will replace you tomorrow, machine. And when you say I'm complicit, I just really want to double click on that, because complicit is like a very powerful word. It actually caused me to step back. I'm like, whoa, because I just feel like you drank the Kool-Aid. Do you know what I mean? Like, I look at it like, well, if they were honest, they would say to you at the interview, listen, we're going to work you to death. You're a powerhouse person. Forget those birthdays and, time with your family on holidays. The customers come first, and we are going to pay you a shit ton of money and stock you up so much that you don't want to leave. Right. And then when you're in the emergency room like me, or you're, having your tremor, then you might reconsider, and that's fine. You're old by then, and we'll just out the door. And I just feel like if that was more transparent and honest, people would actually really know what they're getting into. I think there's this belief that all this food and your dry cleaning and the wellness program, it's the Shangri-La. And I'm like, yeah. So I'd love to just double click on complicit, because we all own our decisions, right? And to take those rose-colored glasses off. So, what shows up when I bring that up to you?
I chose that word thoughtfully because one, I never want to go back to that type of role model. Right. Did it serve me in some ways? Yeah, of course. Did it serve others? Absolutely.
Yep.
And I can't imagine how many other workaholic doing addicts that I encouraged. And so, and my daughter is, by the way, a doing addict. Before the paint even dries on what she's doing now, what are we doing next? And so there is a genetic trait in me. My mother was a doing addict. My grandmother was, to just move, to progress, right? To feel that energetic pull towards or push towards something else. And in that, I lost almost complete presence with what was right in front of me, including my relationships. And thankfully, I didn't get divorced or have anything that wasn't repairable, but I had forgotten how to be fully present. I mean, gosh, I'd forgotten how to fall asleep on my own. I was so overly wired, like those synapses. And that's why I, in my TED Talk, very tenderly moved into this territory calling it addiction, because it had me, I did not have it. And so I was complicit. I knew that there were parts of my life that were less healthy. I was putting myself and others at risk. Like I knew it, but in the moment, somehow I couldn't see another option for how to show up. And I know a lot of your listeners are still in tech. I am not advocating that you can't find what I have found now, staying.
Yep.
Absolutely not. I was also pulled by my soul's desire. I'd been in high tech for the first part of my career, and then biotech, I think, for like 15 years. And I wanted to work in other contexts and industries and nonprofit. I also wanted to work a heck of a lot less, which I do, thankfully. And so there was another pull for me. Could I have done this? Could I have created the life I'm living now, working on the inside, not working 25 hours a week like I am? Absolutely not. But I could have created other ease and flow and joy and freedom by staying.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I love that so much, because I did go back in. So I took my medical leave and I went back in, and I knew, so I never called it an addiction, but I firmly, I align with your wording. And the thing for me that was a really big thing that I got clear on was, if I just take the medical leave and then I'm on the medical leave and I'm thinking I should just leave, it's never going to be better. It's never going to get better. Right. It's just, that's toxic, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know what part do I play here? What boundaries do I have? What am I prioritizing? How am I showing up? Like, I can be a change agent in my own world, and then I can decide. So if I try everything I know with influence skills and time blocking and saying no to say yes, and meditation, which I am horrible at, right? But I was like, I'll meditate every day. Yeah, the simplest things, taking walking one-on-ones, blocking time and sticking with it, not saying yes to every meeting. I mean, the basic things really allowed me to kind of find my power again and then decide, right? And so I stayed in tech for a good year, and my calling to leave to do what I do now had to do with two people that I love dearly passing away, and me realizing I wanted to have a bigger impact than I could inside an organization. So that was my kind of birthing moment, if you will. But I do believe it's possible. And I believe it's really freaking hard because we are conditioned and wired. And that's honestly why I started this podcast. So I believe it's possible. I believe it is.
Well, and I love this sort of secondary but equally important possibility, which is to make those decisions for yourself with as little regret as possible. Because I don't know the age. What's the age of your listeners primarily?
35 to 50. 50s? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, that age group, you've already proven yourself. So you sort of moved into chapter 2, maybe, hopefully, maybe not, but you've also found your groove and your niche and your people and where you can be of great service. And when you shift, the world around you doesn't just automatically say, okay, no problem. Right. Like, it's like at first, like, what do you mean? No. What do you mean, Renee? I already told my boss that you would pick it up because you normally do. Right. So there's a rewiring of your own brain and your own flow and your own choices. And there's also rewiring for everybody around you. So yeah, it isn't easy. And at some point you'll have to decide if it is, you said the word toxicity, you're in a place that is radically toxic. And is that the battle you want to fight? Because that also is right. So again, not easy, but so worthy.
Yeah. And that's part of the discussion here, right? It's not like, oh, here's your cookie cutter solution, but it's more about like reflection and thinking about it. And so I'd love to ask you, when you burnt out and then you've made these changes for yourself, what are the lessons that you've learned? I mean, it's almost like, what advice would you give your former self? But I know there's some juicy nuggets in here that I'd love for you to share, because I think we could all benefit from, your experience and your reflection on that.
Yeah. So for me, the burnout looked like, in my TED Talk, I was having tremors. I was starting to stutter. My doctor thought I had MS. Thankfully, I didn't. It was stress. So I'd done all that to myself. I had devalued sleep immensely, meaning, I'll sleep when I die. 4 hours is plenty. Obviously not. My bones ached on most days. I had forgotten how to fall asleep on my own, particularly traveling a lot around the world, young kids, all of that, plenty of excuses. And so what burnout felt like physically was more obvious, but I was losing touch with all of it. Like, what am I doing? And it wasn't anything midlife. It didn't feel like a midlife crisis. It felt like I just was burnout, and I was losing touch with what had deeper, more resident, more sustainable meaning for me. And so lessons of that, it didn't happen overnight. Like I didn't have a heart attack or something like that, or a divorce. It really was these slow, very impactful, but each in of itself, the event or the feeling or the emotion or the physical manifestation was small enough that I could ignore it for a really long time. So a couple lessons. I should have picked this one up much earlier than in my mid 40s, but my best boss was my first boss. And she was a working mom and said to me, oh, Renee, I was so hungry, right? I was like, more. And she's like, you can have it all, just not at the same time. And I was like, well, that's kind of a crock. Like, what do you mean? Of course I can have it all and at the same time. And what I didn't realize, in addition to her being absolutely right, was that I wouldn't want it all at the same time because I couldn't savor it. I could just taste it and kind of move on. So for those of you listening, maybe younger, and you hear me say that and it sounds like a cop out, I hear you. And it's a big truth. You can't have it all and at the same time and enjoy it, right? And really savor it and take in its meaning. So that was one.
Can you hang on a second? I just want to really land that. This is so important. So what I'm hearing you say is you can have it all, but not at the same time. And then you said because you can't really experience it, appreciate it, and be present. So I think that's like the piece that gets missing when people say it. Like what you just said on the end, Renee, is so powerful. Hey, you can have it all, but if you want to experience it and really be present for it, you're going to need to stagger and scale and flex and really get creative with that, so you can really take it all in. Almost like the zest for it, right?
Yeah, the savoring, the texture of it, the meaning of it, the point of it.
Right. Like how many times have you had a great meal and you don't even taste it? Like you're not having it all. You're just shoving it in your, versus I'm going to take one bite and I'm really going to like experience. I think about like wine tasting or something, when you just slow down to really experience that, but you're not having it all. You're in the moment of the wine taste or the meal.
That's right.
Am I getting your point?
Yeah. And as soon as I tasted that, like tasted presence, full savor, like, oh, I didn't just have a bite. Like I could have the whole thing and like fully let it imprint me. I just wanted more. I was like, oh, that's what it means to live a life worth living, right? To really be with and learn from those moments, those situations, those projects, those people, whatever it might be. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Thank you. Love it.
What else did I learn? So balance is a choice for me, made up of a lot of little choices each and every day. It wasn't so easy. And one of the things, my white space on my calendar opened up when I left, right? Of course. And I was like, oh, that in and of itself, that'll do it. Well, no, of course not. I fill it with some online class or fill it with social commitments, whatever that was. So balance is a choice. And for me, I like someone says, what'd you say no to this week? And I say no to lots of little things that add up to white space, that add up to me being able to say yes to the next big thing that I really want to do, whether it be a book or a podcast or, something else that's sort of not in my daily norm.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go there with you. No. Okay. You say balance is a choice. I have a whole episode. I call it balance is bullshit. So I think, I was just more crude about it than you, which is, who I am. I say dude and the F-bomb once in a while, but you said no to lots of little things. Like give me a couple so for those listening in, when everything feels big and important, what's a little thing that's going to make white space for you? Give me some examples of little things. Little things that add up.
Even like, there's so much being pushed out for classes. There is like, I'm trying to move more into social media and sort of see if and where my people can be found there on Instagram. I'm still wondering, but I'm enjoying it. But it's those little things like, oh, signing up for this workshop or saying yes to this informational interview or saying yes to another client that pays really well, but my max is 5. So that is kind of a mix of a big and a small thing. Speaking engagements, now that I'm kind of out there in that space, I'm having more come to me, even podcasts, right? And so it's like all those little things add up.
That makes sense.
Not just hours in a day, but energetically they add up. And I think too, my message around being a doing addict, a workaholic, that's a more common term, but this addiction to doing, and turning that into a movement requires great intention. And it requires me, I did the TED Talk. Someone said, well, isn't that another thing to do? And I said, yeah, but it was an authentic action I took. And to be honest, and I really thought like it was going to keep me in recovery to put yourself out to the world on a message and then still stay in your stuff is incongruent at best, inauthentic, and lacks integrity at worst, right? So it's helped me stay in my message, in my movement, and in my own work. And so everything else needs to get sort of translated through those lenses.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the clients I'm working with right now and some of the little things those examples are so helpful because I'm thinking, no to a meeting without an agenda. No to another late night when you had an important event at your home, even if it's on Zoom. So the small things could be simply, I'm thinking about it almost the opposite of what you're saying too, that the small things can add up to balance, which is take that half an hour walk for your lunch and get on the call. That's a small thing. So instead of just powering through. So I'm actually playing with it a little bit. So this is what's happening in my brain. I'm like, what are the small things? Like I'm already in my own schedule. Like, I'm going to come up with my small things today. So I love this so much because it's not a big thing. It's not no to that next big project, right? But it might be, I'm not going to take that meeting today and we're going to move that to tomorrow. Just the simplest choice you can make about your time and your
Or
partner.
even a friend, like, hey, can we get together? And I was so often like that, all stuff got pushed off. And so it's like, no, I want to connect with that person. I'm going to actually ask that client if we can kick off next week, or, it's
Yep.
owning your day on it,
Yeah.
being with and owning your day.
Yes. I love it.
As opposed to like
Yep.
before, like I can remember setting goals at the beginning of the year, my poor husband. And I was like, all right, we're going to set goals. And there's going to be a topic around finance and around relationship and around self-help and around health and education and the kids and marriage and right. And then it was like 10 topics, 3 goals. And that fed my addiction. I was like, ooh, I feel alive and well. Yep. And it's like, did I do all that stuff? Probably not. Did I do them well? Probably not. Did I reap the benefits of them? Definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I had the same meeting. I'm cracking up at this. Yeah. And then we'd score ourselves. And one year we got F's in like everything. And I was like, okay, something's not working. Why are we getting F's in like connection? Why are we getting F's in like personal relationships? We made a lot of money, but nothing else is happening. And I thought, oh man. So we had to reframe all that too. And I'm a list maker. I love the dopamine when you just check it off,
Today my Instagram just did, are you a prisoner to your to-do list?
Yes. Oh, well, there you go. Yes, indeed. Right.
Yeah. But it's owning your day. It's owning those choices.
Got it.
And then maybe the third big lesson is, I kind of already mentioned, I'd rather savor the moment rather than taste it. And so that just feels better. Like it overall kicks up and sustains more kind of dopamine than those quick fixes do. But for me, my body knows what's going on way before my head and even before my heart. It's like this idea that my body is has to like be a buffer to everything. It's here right now. It can go nowhere else. Whereas my brain, I can kind of go back to yesterday or look ahead to Hawaii in a couple of weeks. Or my heart is sort of always kind of like, is it safe to open or does it need to stay closed? Right. So it's always kind of more tentative, but my body is right here and it knows what's going on. And so I've gotten really in touch with the physical manifestation of when a no is needed. Because my body just goes, it's like gives me like almost an electrical jolt right away. Like, answer's no. And here's another myth. Well, I want to, so I should.
Oh, dude.
To, right?
Yeah,
the world is full of real cool things to do. Trust me, there is for most of us, not a lack of opportunity and really cool things to do, but just because I can doesn't mean I should. And those are the hardest no's, but they afterwards, oh my God, I'm like, good job,
Right. Yeah. Yay me. I did it.
Yeah. Totally.
Have you ever done your human design? Do you know what
I
that
need
is?
to. Yes,
oh my
I do.
gosh. So I did.
And okay, this is like the 5th time it's come up in the last 3 months. So I need to start universe. Yeah,
it's time. So I did mine. And the answer, one of the things I got out of it, and, I did a podcast on it, so I won't go too deep, but I want to land on this one. So the way for me to make, I'm emotion rules my decision making. So if something's amazing and I'm energized by it, I'm like all in, go, get it. Yeah, it's the greatest thing ever. Right. And if I do that, it's always a yes, right? If that's how I used to make decisions. And in human design, what I learned about myself was just exactly what you're saying. Just because I was excited and it felt good, it's almost a lie to myself, because the question really is this right for me right now? And that's a yes or no question I have to ask myself. And how many times, I see the next greatest whatever for my business, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go get this new system. I'm like, wait a minute, I know what it takes to roll out a system. That's a no. How could that possibly have been a yes? So is this the right thing for me right now has become one of my questions that I never knew to ask before. And I'm fascinated that this shows up in a human design process. So I just was asking
That's
you because
awesome.
It's very similar, but I had to get that through a whole other, process, and you already have that. And I wanted to ask you about knowing. So when you feel it in your body, right? Here's what I know for the folks that I support in tech. So many times they're in their head and they're in the left logical code writing, they're Spock-like. Do you know what I mean? And that's not a detriment, but that other part isn't tuned in to where they're in tune with feelings or emotions or much less sensations in their body. Do you have any tips for how you figured that out? How did you come to really better understand what your body was telling you?
So I can't remember if you just said it on the podcast or we were just chatting about it before we went live, but I wrote an article called Meditation My Ass, and it took me, I think
it's called Meditation My Ass.
And Meditation My Ass, right up your alley. Yeah.
I
You
love
could
this.
include that in the show notes. And here's the deal with that. And I wrote this before I had named doing as an addiction. But I thought the point of meditation was, like everything, to get really good at it.
Right. Yes.
And
raising my hand. Yeah.
Right. And of course, that's not the point, even remotely. That is not the point. What I also realized when I was trying to meditate, because I knew it would be good for me, is that I would somehow, it would just click one day, but just finally my body could be still. But at that point, when I had started back in 2003, I didn't want to be still. I didn't. And so, for me, I had to come into this desire for stillness before the benefits of meditation were available to me. So meditation, though, helped me be in touch with my body. I start every coaching session with a minute of silence. And I can't believe how many, I just get teary-eyed thinking how hard I was on my body, how many signals I missed about what was really going on for me, because I was so detached from the physical sensation that is always there, but you have to pay attention. And so when I closed my eyes in that minute, I already like, oh, look at my shoulders are up. Like I can just sense into, and then just breathe in and like let go. And so just coming into greater contact with the sensations that were likely always there, but I was just moving so quickly and I just couldn't be still long enough, whether that was even like 5 seconds, to tune in. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been so involved in something and someone next to you is like, God, do you hear that noise? Of course you don't hear that noise.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, how long has that dog been barking? Or how long has that siren been going off? The body for me was very, very similar. And as soon as I realized how much wisdom it had and that it was actually the most easy signal to tune into, took some work. It just started speaking to me again. And sleep, even like I didn't know how to fall asleep on my own. And now, like, I remember the first night I finally fell asleep on my own. That's a second TED Talk called Confessions of an Insomniac. Just how much abuse I had done to myself, my head as well, because that monkey mind, but mostly my body. So I value my body. Yoga, I did a lot of yoga for a few years, and I've missed that this last year. I have not gone into a hot room in 15 months.
Yeah.
Just appreciating my body. I've always been physical, and to realize like I'm a healthy person. I've really honored my body in terms of what I put into it and how I treat it. But yet was I, so now like really like, no, self-care, massages, walks, stretching, all of that, chiropractic care weekly. I just pay attention to my body. So I wish it was like, there's not like one thing.
No, but it's beautiful because if you're listening right now, what you can do, right? If you're driving, of course, wait till you sit still, but even just to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths is, there's a lot more to it. Of course, you can like scan the light and, wiggle your toes and go up your legs. And I so appreciate what you're saying, because it's not like you have to go take a class to do this. You really just have to be intentional about tuning in.
And you have to want to be still at least long enough to hear what your body's trying to tell you. Because you're, again, it's that felt sense. Someone used that term for me and that resonated. What's your felt sense of what's happening? And I was like, what? That sounds like a woo-woo word. And I can be woo-woo, but this was like beyond me. And it was like, at the time, it must've been another coach or in a coaching class. Felt sense is what's going on right now in this moment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I remember sitting one time and someone had given me guidance to like, you're not present until you can rub the tips of your fingers together and start to feel the ridges. And I was like, what kind of crock?
Oh, I love that.
And then I did it and I was like, oh, wait, I'm nowhere else. I am right here. And it only took, I got really good at it. I was like, wow. So that was one of my big things to teach people when they're feeling triggered, like they're pissed off at their boss or one more thing hits, and they're just go rah, right? Because when you're burning out, you get a little cynical, right? You get pretty angry. So I was like, hold on, let's just, for a minute. And they think I'm nutballs, just do this. And then the other thing I'll be like, okay, let's just shake it off. Like physically,
energetically, brush it off.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's like, you can actually feel the difference in that. And I'm a huge fan of dance parties. So, that's how I roll. But I had no clue. And my partner, we do a clubhouse room on Sunday nights. You're always welcome. Please join us. It's on Burnout. And my partner, my clubhouse partner, was telling me that when she had her first burnout, she couldn't feel her skin. She actually had to go get a brush, those dry brushes. She said, I could not feel my skin.
Wow.
Because you're so
desensitized herself that much.
So she actually had to start brushing. And so this is a very common thing. And I think when you're in it, you don't even know you can't feel it. And so that's why I'm always trying to double click on this for people, because boy, if you can figure that out before you're on the other side of it and do the smallest things, rub your fingers, brush it off, shake the energy, take a couple of deep breaths before even responding. What a difference that can make in your day and in your relationships.
I love what you just did. And it was a second. It's that like, do I want to react or respond? And I tell like whether or not you have to create physical different distance or not, maybe sometimes, right? Back away from the person, the energy coming at you. But it's just, how do you just create enough separation between what's going on and what my choices are so that you can be in choice? Yeah. And I think, the body tells you, it's sort of like, now you're ready. Now your truth is more accessible. You're not going to be as at risk of sort of that habitual pattern for me of like saying yes when I really meant no, or So I love that. There's also a nice practice you might do, sort of head, heart, body. And I sometimes will do that with clients just to see which of those three intelligences is more accessible. Almost just closing your eyes. So it's kind of really closing your eyes, starting with the head, and almost like a flashlight, or the sort of thinking that you have a flashlight is a helpful tool, and you shine it first in the head, right? What am I thinking? What's the word that I would use to describe, right? So how in touch am I with what my mind really wants to tell me? And then in the heart, kind of moving that light down into the heart, sitting in and filling out the whole of that space. What are you feeling? What emotion is accessible? What are you blocking, right? And then going down to that belly center. And the belly center is instinct, absolutely. But there's also warmth, texture. Can I feel the temperature of the room? Can I feel any discomfort in my body, any tension? And am I able to breathe and let that go? And usually a client has easier access to one of those. For those listening, by the way, the head is the most harnessed of the intelligences. So that one's probably pretty easy for most, but is the clarity of what your mind wants to say, is that accessible, or is it just that smart sort of, whether it be a technical knowledge or just kind of go-to phrases or go-to ways of unpacking things? Or can you also expand into other territories, and that right brain, the creative, the more emotional part of the brain, the more aesthetic part, the texture. So anyway, all good stuff. This is
so good. I actually, if you can't see me, if you're listening and not watching the audio, I actually closed my eyes and I checked in on all three. Brain was really fast. Heart was pretty good. Belly, I was like, hello.
You're like, I'm filling out the whole space, but it's kind of empty. It's echoing.
I was like, is it because it's lunchtime? I don't know what's going on in my belly. But what's so interesting, when my daughter was, we moved and we started a new school, and she kept having these massive stomach cramps. And I was like, what's going on? So we go to the doctor, take the food diary. And I'm like, it's not the food diary. I mean, you go through the process, right? But I knew enough. I mean, I've read Louise Hay. I know the symptoms my body's telling me. I know there's messages. And so then we went to the pediatrician. I just said, tell me how many times something like this has to do with like mental, emotions and mental, not necessarily something wrong. And she's like 90% with kids. And I thought, well, there's something that if I can teach her now, and we can explore this now versus waiting to be 40, in the emergency room with like, what's your body trying to tell you? And Renee, she doesn't have any more stomach aches. I'm like, this is so flippin' amazing to know that your body knows even at 9, right? Even at 2, but at 2, they can't really say what's going on. But at 9, she was really clear. And what a gift to better understand that. So I'm so glad you double clicked on that for us. We all need that.
Well, and there is science to say there is literally synapses, right? And happen through our gut. But what you reminded me of your daughter at 2, it's called a temper tantrum.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So that's like, they're expressing it. Today we kind of brush off, right? Or do a little shake or dance, right? But at 2, you have a temper tantrum. At 9, you're not allowed to anymore, right? You're sort of past that phase. And so we hold on, we bury. Louise Hay's work is unbelievable, but
so good. Yeah. Well, so
trauma locks in.
Oh,
and you, unfortunately, just talking about it often isn't even enough. You really got to work it out.
Yeah.
So that you kind of unlock and create new space and new freedoms in our bodies, and for me, I know when I'm over yesing, because my body is like, hello, really? You're here again? And by the way, everyone listening, I am in recovery.
Exactly. Right. It's every day is a choice, isn't it? Every day is a struggle. Every day you have these. Yeah. It should. Hello. I mean, society.
The old me, pre-pandemic me, would have used the pandemic to write 2 books, to launch my podcast, to, I don't know, do more on my travel blog, like just more and more and more, like
build an entire retreat center.
That's right. Right. Not just host a retreat live, but build a retreat center. Exactly. Yeah. Why? Because I could, so I should.
It's a really good thing. Yeah. Well, so what really inspires you? Like, as you're looking at this next phase of your life's journey and bringing this message to the world, which is so needed, I would so curious, what lights you up? What brings you joy? Tell us about what makes you tick.
This may be, I don't know. I'm sure there'll be some people who can relate. What inspires me is people who are clear enough and resolved enough to go after their dreams. So I am a junkie for American Idol and The Voice and Top Chef, and someone's like, of all people, why do you watch those? Well, one, the human condition is fascinating. There's nowhere that it's better showcased for good, and most of the time, you're right, than some of those shows. I'm inspired by people's story. In my own, I think I'm inspired by when I can get kind of clear and resolved enough in my own head and heart to just live right here in this moment. Like, noticing nature also inspires me. I don't think I appreciated it in my 30s, so like this idea of, nature is I think the most beautiful representation of what it would look like just to trust the universe, and to let the ebb and flow, you said the seasons, the chapters unfold. I'm inspired when I can let go. Like, of course. And I'm inspired by deep conversation and people who are really under tough circumstances and just still come out shining brightly, so those are the types of things that inspire me. It used to be another person, like, an Oprah or a leader, and those are less impactful to me than some of the other things that I mentioned. So everyday people doing extraordinary things.
Everyday people do. Listen, that's just where it's at. I mean, I resonate. We watch Pooch Perfect. I don't know if you've ever watched that.
Oh, gosh, I did tape it, but I haven't watched it. You're gonna love it, darling.
You're gonna love it. It's like these amazing creatives who like transform dogs into works of art. And it's the talk about, the underdogs and like living your dream. Who is going to say I am, the world champion poodle groomer, right? Like, that's like not a normal thing you hear about in the day-to-day world. And yet they're standing in their truth. I mean, I feel like they're so authentic. And so that's my TV recommendation for you. And we can, chat about it later, but
I love that. I love that. I just watched Soul on the airplane. My daughter was at a volleyball tournament. Yeah. And I just watched Soul, and I was like, I can't believe I'm just watching this now. And I had people like, you need to watch this, right? This idea of there's one purpose for you. And if you don't find it, right, your life meant nothing. And I'm like, goodness, I hope I never told anybody that ever.
Right.
Because I think, who knows, right? But when you're in it, when you're inspired, and just stay in touch with that. And I would love to be someone that inspires greatness in others. You had some other questions about leadership. Do you have people work for you that say, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, you made my life better, richer, more meaningful. You helped me make better choices or whatever. Like, what an honor as leaders who are listening. What an honor it is to serve another human being's life experience. Like, that chokes me up. Like, what an honor to coach people, to be that intimate and to hear stories they've never told even their spouse. And it's just all such an honor. So the human condition inspires me.
I love it so much. And I just made this question up. It just came a download, so I'm just going to go for it. If you could write a permission slip to the world, What do you give the world permission to do, be, or have?
There's a piece around, live life on your own terms. No one gets to tell you if you're happy, sad, mad, or glad. Who you are, what you've done, what you have is already enough. And if not now, then when? And if not you, then who? And that is your journey. No one gets to package that for you. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for
and then, of course, permission to say no.
Yeah, right. Permission to say no. Permission granted, right?
Yeah.
So everybody, if you want to know Renee, which I know you already do, you want to go to Renee Dineen. Let's see. So there's two websites, right? There's reneedineen.com and authenticinaction.com. Did I get that right?
And that one's mostly around my work around doing addiction. I have hundreds of resources on there on this topic. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then of course the TED Talk. So easy to find. Please go watch it, everybody.
And Instagram is Renee M. Dineen. Renee Dineen was taken. I need to find her.
Yes, we need to
Renee
find her.
M. Dineen. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So for everyone who knows me, there's always a way we end our podcast here. It's with a song, because song has energy. And just like we're talking about shaking it off or getting in touch with our body, song raises the vibe. And I would love to add you to our playlist, our Ctrl+Alt+Delete podcast playlist.
Okay. I'm hoping this one's not on there yet, but
I know, right? Tell me what's your go-to song to be your pick-me-up?
November before the pandemic, we went to a festival and all my friends had told me about Michael Franti. Not all my friends, but a good group of people. And he sings a song called Let It Go. And we were at this festival and he was playing. Talk about joy. Talk about like deep-seated love for the world and like just being in the moment. He is unbelievable. So Let It Go by Michael Franti. And then another song, my favorite, which is probably less known, is called Follow the Sun by Xavier Rudd. Follow the Sun. And I have here's something you don't know about me. I have a sun tattoo on my lower back.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it's really a symbol. Every day is a new day.
Yeah.
And follow the sun is go towards the light, live in the light. Suffering is sometimes necessary, but more importantly, it's optional. Like to really believe that suffering is doesn't have to be part of your everyday story, and so living in the light, follow the sun. I love it. And it's just the beat of it is great. So
I love it. And I love
dance around my room. That's right.
Yeah. Cause that's the thing. You don't have to play the song you just experience the song and the energy just by telling me about it. That's one of my favorite tips to tell people. If you can't play the music, all you have to do is put it in your thought process and watch what happens, because you'll be bebopping. You can't stop it. Like when it's the right song to raise your vibe, it's just beautiful. I know Michael Franti very well. We play him in our house all the time. I don't know the Follow the Sun, and I'm going to go check that out. Yeah. Renee.
Such a pleasure to be back in intimate conversation with you again.
Oh, I'm so grateful for this time and for all the work that you're doing. And I'm just honored to hold space and to share your voice with this amazing tribe in this Ctrl+Alt+Delete land of tech and leading, with head and heart and being present for the moments that matter. There's just such alignment here. And the permission slip exercise at the end was so awesome. I mean, we went everywhere from lessons learned to feeling inspired to workaholic to being and doing and everything in between. And what a gift you are to our listeners. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Everybody, you know where to find her. reneedineen.com, authenticinaction.com, or Renee M. Dineen on the Insta. Make sure you go to the playlist and get her songs and make it a great day. Take good care, everybody.
That was great content, but let's be honest. If you don't get the support you need and start making changes in your life and work as a leader in tech, you can expect regret and burnout in the near future. Lisa can help you get kick-ass results at work without burning out, so you can be present for the moments that matter to you and your loved ones. Take your first step at rebootwithlisa.com.